And now we are going to review New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestling Dontaku event that happened on March 3rd and 4th. That's right, 2 nights, 2025, of course, from the Fukuoka Convention Center in Fukuoka, Japan. We are going to be doing this review without a hat. That's right. I am not wearing my hat right now. For those of you with the benefit of video, why am I not wearing my hat? Well, my hair is very long and ample right now, and it makes me look particularly stupid if I'm wearing a hat. So I've decided to forego the hat, go ahead and enjoy all the grayness of my hair. Doesn't happen very often. You'll either like it or you don't. And if you don't, well, deal with it. If you like it, well, thank you. 2,903 people showed up for Dontaku Night 1 on May the 3rd, whereas 5,407 people showed up on Night 2, May 4th. So there's a significant there's a significant difference between the both nights. The attendance, I guess to a degree, you could chalk this up to the idea that Night 2 turned out to be Tetsuya Naito's last match in New Japan, at least as a full-time wrestler, as a contracted wrestler for New Japan. So that probably ended up selling a lot more tickets. If so, then it makes you think, what would the attendance have been like had Naito not be, I don't want to use the term retiring, but leaving New Japan there. That's more. Oh, and Bushi was there too. You know what I'm talking. Let's be real here, right? Like, well, Warren, how is it? How bad is it in comparison to other years? Well, let's say we go back to last year, to 2024. Night 1 had 2,440 people in attendance. That was main evented by Nick Nemeth. Ryan was not main eventing a New Japan show. Nick Nemeth versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the global title. And then Night 2 had 4,238 tickets, or at least people in attendance. That was the main event that had Jon Moxley versus Ren Narita for the IWGP World Heavyweight title, which also was co-main evented, I guess, by Nick Nemeth and David Finlay for the global title. So the difference between the two nights was there last year as well, and by a solid margin, kind of like this year, at least, at least a 2,000 person difference. That kind of discrepancy, or at least split, was also present even in days where New Japan was doing a lot better and drawing more people naturally. If we go back to 2019 for Dontaku, Night 1 had 4,000 people in attendance, whereas Night 2 had 6,105 people in attendance. And in case you're curious, the main event of Dontaku Night 1 in 2019 was Taiji Ishimori versus Dragon Lee. Feels like eons ago, but nonetheless. And the main event for Night 2 was Kazuchika Okada versus Sonata. So that's kind of, the pattern is still there nonetheless. I still think the Naito departure did provide a bump, but nonetheless, the trend is still there. Like you can still observe the trend of Night 1 of Dontaku doing not as good as Night 2, and Night 2 is like easily 2,000 people more, right? So overall, year over year, Dontaku 2025 did better than Dontaku 2024. Now, if you think about what about other events that New Japan has held in the Fukuoka Convention Center, well, without going too deep on going down year after year after year, especially since we're just chit-chatting here and trying to get a sense of how things perform usually. Well, in 2024, last year, outside of Dontaku, New Japan ran the convention center twice. During the G1, actually, they ran Night 6, which was on July 28th, that attracted 1,780 people, and Night 7, which was the very next day, July 29, and that attracted pretty much the same thing, 1,757 people. So there you go, just to give you a bit of a larger scope. But overall, what we have to take away here, I guess, is that year over year, this year's Dontaku has performed better attendance-wise and continues the trend of there being a rather large discrepancy between the attendance. Well, not discrepancy, but difference is the word, not discrepancy. Discrepancy is not the right word in this circumstance. But there's a rather large difference in attendance between night 1 and night 2. That's been going on for that we have data to back up that this has kind of been a trend at the very least. The trend for these shows here, if we want to talk about quality now, I thought these were good shows for what I watched. I'm going to be very honest. I skipped through a lot of this card. If only because, or both cards, I should say, if only because of time. Anyone who's been listening to the podcast recently or has been joining us on streams know that I had a lot of wrestling to catch up on, particularly past WrestleMania week. And I've been doing a lot of catch up this weekend, including the big Stardom show, which is a 5-hour show. So that in and about itself is, consumes a sizable chunk of time. And I did want to, and there's other stuff I wanted to watch, and I wanted to watch I wanted to get back into New Japan and make sure I follow the beats here, because I wanted to get this out. So there's choices that I made in regards to the matches I opted out of. So maybe it won't be my most thorough and in-depth review in that regard, where I'm breaking down every match. That won't be the case. But I think when it comes to the matches that I skip, you'll be like, oh, Warren, we understand. That's fine. It's not as if I'm skipping the main events here. It's not as if I'm skipping Hiroki Goto defeating Callum Newman to retain the IWGP World Heavyweight title, which happened on night 2, and we're going to start with that, right? I think what I'll do is I'll talk about like the big business end matches, and then we might go down and look at the rest of the card night by night, if that works with you. But I found like I really did find like night 2 overall was a better show than night 1. I think the better matches were there. I'm not saying there weren't any good matches on night 1. There's one in particular that I'm excited to talk about, but I think that night 2 had the better layout. It was just a better show to watch up and down and all around. And the main event made sure that it was all capped off with something that felt really, really good. This was a tremendous match that was put on by Hiroki Goto and Callum Newman. That's right. Look, I've got nothing bad to say about Callum Newman in this one. He showed up and he showed how good he can be. There's a lot of stuff that, look, let me summarize for you. When he joined New Japan, everyone was telling me, you got to keep an eye on this kid. Ospreay wouldn't be, bending himself backwards to try and get him into New Japan, if he didn't think he was talented. So everyone was like, keep an eye on him. And I was like, all right, okay, cool. Let's see how things go. And it never quite clicked. It never quite, for me anyway, never saw the connection, never felt that connection, didn't see exactly what made him special. I can tell he's talented. I just don't know if I was able to see what was the thing that made him really, really unique. Because it ain't in the charisma department, brother. We can say all we want that at the same age, Callum Newman is much more talented than Will Ospreay was. But Will always had like a spark, a presence about him, even if it wasn't as fulfilled as it is maybe today, because he's got the confidence and whatnot. he still had something there to offer to create a connection with. I've never seen it with Callum Newman. He's had fine matches that I've enjoyed to things where I'm like, what are we even doing here? And I understand that he's very young. I understand that he's still in his early 20s. So, I never sat here. I never sat here and said outright, Callum Newman stinks. I just said I don't see it. So I got off the train. I just jumped off and I was like, I don't see it. And, but I reserve the right to buy a ticket to get on the train once it swings back around my station. And the train did swing around back. Jeez, because he was terrific in this match. Don't get me wrong. I saw, I guess, what a lot of people thought he could do, but I was even amazed. I was impressed with some of the grit that he showed, the presence that he had as well. Like, why hasn't he been doing this in his lower mid-card match? Like, he could be compelling up and down the card. Why is, like, I understand he has to show up because he's in the main event, but at the same time, I'm like, why hasn't he been doing this up and down his matches? It would be completely acceptable. So, as I said, the train swung back around. Did I buy a ticket to get back on? No, not quite yet. No. I'm still not fully returned back, jumping back on the Callum Newman train. Again, it'll swing by again at some point and I might jump back on. There's someone else whose train I am firmly, or at least let's say we've changed course on the train. Let's put it that way. We'll get to that a little later. So, I reserve the right to continuously change my opinions and be surprised. And I was delightfully surprised here in this match because he showed, like I said, he showed so much passion and energy in here where I'm like, this is great. Like, this is legitimately what we want. Now, is this a one-time thing? And we're going to return to, just scumming around? Maybe. Or will this unlock something? And this is what I'm hoping for, honestly. Because if we get more and more of this Callum Newman, I have no complaints. I'll be not only will I be back on the train, I will take 6 months of training to learn how to conduct a train so that I can drive the train or conduct the train. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to do if this is what happens. And I can't help but make comparisons when I see a young guy like him get into the ring and just leave it all out there, have these great, already memorable moments with Hiroki Goto. And I can't help but think of Shota Umino, who just like swings through the motions and never, thinks that screaming at the audience is showing emotion. And that's the most that we're going to get. I can't help but get absorbed into it and make the comparisons. And I'm like, this guy really showed me something, and I want to see more. I want to see more out of it. I want to see more out of Callum Newman because look, again, just like I said, there's moments in here that I thought were memorable, like him asking Hiroki Goto to beat the shit out of him, putting his hands behind his back and getting back up. And I was like, okay, this actually rules. This is really, really good. And his selling was tremendous. I guess it's not really hard to sell Hiroki Goto offense at the same time. Like that, that's a thing. But he's pulling out, he's leaving it, I should say. He's leaving everything out there, just eating those shots. And Goto say, all right, you want some more? Come on. It will be my pleasure, to keep hitting you straight in the jaw. But at the same time, Newman is trying stuff. He's trying to piece things together. He's doing the Oz cutter to a huge pop. Like when he finally he tried to do the Oz cutter on the apron, that didn't work out. But when he hit it in the ring, right, and it was beautiful at the same time. Not only did he hit it, but it was a beautiful Oz cutter. Audience popped huge for it. He gets fired up. He has these great hope spots. He gets fired up after taking all of the hits to the jaw, right? Well, he's requesting them. And he lands a German suplex and a roundhouse, but Goto gets him with a GTW, right? And he's doing his own, he's doing Rainmakers. He does the firebolt gimmick. And and Goto at the same time, he's kicking out of everything. Like he's just kicking out of everything. And commentary is going nuts. Like commentary here did a spectacular job, at putting everything together, at making this story complete, harkening back to Shinsuke Nakamura winning the IWGP heavyweight title, and how Callum would be the youngest. Since then he'd be the youngest, and making us believe that it was going to happen, and not in the cheap way where someone lands a blue thunder bomb, and then Walker Stewart or any commentator would say, "Oh, we've got a new champ, 1, 2, no," like never in that end. Like they themselves, Charlton and Walker, were conveying such fantastic emotion in that as well. Like they were believing it. They were buying into it. So they made me believe that this might actually happen. Although I was convinced it wasn't going to happen, but they did a good job to get me invested in the match. How about that? They did a really, really good job because look, there was no way Callum Newman was going to win this title, right? Not with Hiroki Goto being who he is and a popular champion who has currently a solid track record for drawing. It's like 0 cents. Would have made 0 cents. But man, is the crowd alive for this. And the crowd is into it. And they're chanting Goto's name. They're chanting Newman's name. They're into this match. Goto lands a Rainmaker of his own. Headbutts and a Shotenkai by Goto. And listen, Newman, he tries his best to avoid the GTR. He's in the position. He's trying to, not let things overcome him. But he can't. He has to let go. And Goto lands the GTR for the win. No, I mean, look, this was fantastic. It was fantastic. And it really was. It was a well-told story about the vet and the new kid, right? But where you felt like class was in session. You felt like Goto was teaching this kid a lesson, but wasn't walking the dog with him either. Because this also served to establish Newman as a guy who can potentially be a guy in this company. It was a this term gets thrown out around a lot, but this was meant to be a star-making performance, and I think they delivered when it comes to that. So it's not one of these where the veteran runs through the young upstart. No, the young upstart was ready, and the young upstart has grit, and the young upstart wanted it really, really bad. But the young upstart has a ways to go before he's even remotely on the level of this seasoned veteran who has himself been working decades to be in this spot. He's got a long ways to go before he reaches this spot here. And you could feel that's the story they were telling here. Because Goto, there were instances here where Goto, if he had taken Newman not as seriously, you could feel like they could have told a story where we could have gone down the road of the upset win, where Goto wasn't taking him seriously and slips on a banana peel, or Newman is able to squeeze through an opportunity because, the champion is being a little too arrogant. But that's not Goto's style. Goto's style is not about being arrogant. It's about the fight. It's about wrestling. So he was able to make it through and retain the title, whereas Callum Newman looked great in the process. I thought this match rocked. I thought it was tremendous. You have to think right now that Hiroki Goto is the best world champion in professional wrestling today. And, I'm basing this on the stuff that I watch. There's some look, and I can entertain arguments. If you want to talk about Saya Kamitani, all right, okay. If you want it, look, I know he's not champion anymore, but if you wanted to talk about Cody, we could have a chat about Cody, But I don't see many people out there who have this combination of authenticity and popularity that generates into a real feeling of attachment to a champion. Like Goto doesn't come across as a phony at all, and I think in pro wrestling sometimes that can be difficult for wrestlers, but he comes across so authentic because the story they told was since the New Japan Cup last year was exactly that. It was a story that so grounded and real and resonated with people, both in Japan and in North America as well. I think North American fans are invested in Goto. We know the Japanese fans are. It's just something that resonates. And when you see him wrestle in a way that not a lot of guys left in the company do, because he's from that golden era of the mid 2000 teens, right? I think there's something that feels comfortable about it. And it's not even like an homage. He still works the way, it's not an homage because he's working hard, because he's still at the top of his game. He's not he's not doing things for the nostalgic aspect of it. No, it all comes together and it still works. And I think the spot that he has right now to be the bar that everyone under him should try to achieve, I should say, when it comes to their work, I think it's plausible. I think it's a good and makes sense. Kind of a gatekeeper to a degree. The more his reign moves on, the more I sort of look at it and say, okay, well, maybe this is the whole undercurrent, right? Where we want the next generation to come in and take over because, well, multiple reasons. We're not going to reiterate all of those right now, but we want the new guys to come in and take over, but we also want them to take it over and rekindle that spirit that existed in that great era of New Japan, which Hiroki Goto was a part of. So Goto really is like, he's not only the last standard bearer of that era, but he's also the bar. He's the guy you need to clear, and he's the guy who will make sure that whoever follows in this championship reign, as far as the younger guys go, that they can live up to those expectations, those aspirations. Now, it might not even be a new guy who takes over, because we've got other challengers coming up, right? We've got, after the match, as is tradition, in the post-match promos, Zack Sabre Jr. came out to challenge Goto next, but then Shingo Takagi came out as well to be like, hey, I also want to be in this conversation. And the way things played out, we are going to get Zack Sabre Jr. at Resurgence, which is going to be this upcoming Friday, and then Shingo said, "I'll take next on whoever wins," which will probably be Dominion in June. And I'm completely okay with that, don't get me wrong. But maybe like it could be that everything I just said might just be invalidated. Like, okay, I don't think Zach is winning the title at Resurgence. Weirder things have happened, Weirder things have happened, but I don't think he's winning the title. And look, we'll talk about it as we get closer, but I can make a case for Shingo Takagi winning the title. I can make a case for Shingo winning. Going back to the pandemic era, Shingo title run, his solid work within the company, like he's a loyal guy who has done tremendous work. And look, he said it himself. I think my faction is done now. I think LIJ doesn't exist anymore. So you want to keep. There's an advantage to keeping Shingo strong. Just like you can make an argument to me to say Shingo will never sniff a world championship again in this company, and I'm like, I agree. But you could make an argument for Shingo winning as well. So if we're going with Shingo at Dominion, then all the stuff I just said about the young guys just goes, it's thrown out the window. And I'm a big Shingo guy, don't get me wrong, but I do see the advantage. I 100% see the advantage of keeping the title on Hiroki Goto for a long time because he's driving business to the company. He's just driving business. So, I mean, and that's really like the cherry on top of this Hiroki Goto run, which, has fan support. It feels good. His matches are always excellent on top of that. And then we get to the point, well, is he a draw? And you can kind of go, yeah, he's been doing good business for the company as well, which is probably one of the factors which is probably the main factor that where New Japan decided to not belt up Dave Finlay at Sakura Genesis and instead keep it on Goto again for a while. And they should. I mean, look, if he's drawing money, and he's having excellent matches in the meantime, keep the belt on him for as long as you need. It makes sense, right? Your fans will let you know when they're sick of him, but they're not sick of him yet. I think it's a good story, and he's a good champion. He's a good down-to-earth, no frills, no nonsense, great pro wrestler champion that also just happens to put asses in seats. That's the kind of thing. You're a promoter. That's kind of what you want, right? That's kind of what you want. So listen, turns out this match, I loved it. Thought it was very good. Excellent even. I would give it 4.25 stars. That's how much I enjoyed this match. And that's how much I enjoyed Callum Newman showing up, showing out. And hopefully it's an upward trajectory on that front. Let's stick with night 2 and talk about Yota Tsuji defeating Yuya Uemura to retain the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. This might be a hot take because I don't know how you all feel, and please feel free to let me know in the comments or on Blue Sky. But I think I like this match a little more than the main event. I think I like this match more than the main event. I'm still hesitating with my dopey little match rating here, where I'm like, is this a 4.5 star match that I saw? Or was, because I don't know. It was so incredibly solid and strong. I have no issues with this match. And it got me going in an entirely different way than the IWGP World Heavyweight title match. Maybe because these two guys here are two guys who are clearly positioned to be top guys, or at least that New Japan is hoping will be top guys. And they got in there and they did a top guys type of match. Someone I can't remember who said it or told me that Yuya Uemura for them is like a modern day Ricky Steamboat. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like that is the best comparison. Like this is a guy who depends on his fundamentals, on being solid and crisp with his offense. And this is a guy who depends on having crisp and solid, believable fundamentals, and also depends on his crowd connection, which is tremendous. Like, he's a great babyface. I mean, I get excited when this guy starts doing arm drags and hip tosses. I'm like, what is going on? But he's got that snap and that fire to him when he does them. I love it when he does the arm drag and then locks in an arm bar, which was fantastic. Working the knees and doing figure fours. There were 2 figure 4 spots in this match. The first one was good, but it fed the second one, because the first one, Tsuji kind of struggled to get out of it. So when the second figure 4 was locked in and Yumera was working the knee, the Yota Tsuji's knee, much more throughout the match, then it became much more significant. Then you're like, holy shit, he might actually be in trouble. And the struggle that Tsuji conveyed was fantastic. Like, there was a lot of really good drama in here. I love the German suplex spot by Yumera, and then I love the dragon suplex spot by Yumera, and he holds on to the waist and then does a dragon suplex on top after that as well. And then the counter to the Gene Blast spear by doing a fucking arm drag. And I'm like, of course. Like, and this is going to be their thing moving forward, right? Like, these 2 guys are being positioned as generational rivals. Like, that's their clear path. That's what New Japan wants. They want these guys to have a career-long story, right? So if Yumera is here, fighting this guy over and over again, and his specialty is these arm drags, and now he can use them for to counter the Gene Blast, we are going to see this multiple times. And eventually, Yoda is going to find a way to counter the counter. At some point, he's going to be like, nah, I'm sick of you countering my spear with your fucking arm drag. I'll do this crazy ass thing, whatever. It's tremendous. And look, I'm pouring praise on Yuya Uemura here, but Yota Tsuji in this match, I got to tell you, I was impressed in this one here. And the reasons for that are simple. I have been on a very iffy relationship with Yota Tsuji for a while. Like, if you listen to my New Japan reviews or whatever, that I've slowly started to come around to the fact that Yota Tsuji might be a vibes guy more than anything else. I've stopped trying to create a vision for Yota Tsuji in my head where he's this super worker and can have these excellent matches like right and left. And I'm like, no, he's going to be more of a Shinsuke Nakamura type, where he's going to be a really solid, a really good worker. I'm not trying to say that he's bad. He's going to be a really good worker. And once in a while, he's going to lay it on us with a great, excellent match. But he's not going to be like, he's not going to be, a Katsuyori Shibata. He's not going to be a Kazuchika Okada, right? He's not going to be this guy who's going to pump out Will Ospreay. We're not getting 5-star classics over and over with this guy. And people are going to like him, and we're going to like him, and we're going to love him because he's got the vibes, because he's got the look, and so on and so forth. Kind of like Nakamura, right? Where Nakamura could, he could handle doing the big time Wrestle Kingdom match, but on the way to, he's having nice, nifty little 3.25, 3.5 star matches, and you're like, oh, okay. But Shinsuke Nakamura's cool. But now I feel like we're starting to see a Yota Tsuji who's waking up, who's realizing that maybe he needs to put in a little more. And we saw it with, the Gabe Kidd match at the name of the show's just blew my mind. New Beginnings. There we go. The New Beginning there you go. New Beginning. That was the one I thought that was the one that I completely forgot for some reason. But he had an outstanding match there. And he comes around and he has another incredible match here with one of his contemporaries. Again, another one of his contemporaries in a situation here where he has a championship. Maybe this is another guy who's, he's starting to see some opportunities brew, right? He's seeing the field of guys that he came up with, establishing themselves throughout the card. He's seeing Naito leaving and, whatever's left of LIJ, what's going to happen next kind of thing. Maybe he's starting to feel it where he's like, okay, well, this is my spot to take now, right? I'm sure it feels like he is highly favored by management, which is fine because you can see why. Why wouldn't you give everything you got to try and push this guy? I don't have a problem with it, but I'm starting to see Yota Tsuji on a level that I wished he was on. I'm starting again. I'm not trying suddenly to figure out how he's going to become the super worker, but more like this is the level I feel he should be working on, because this match was tremendous. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I don't know if it's because he's working with Umera and they have the chemistry and whatnot, and if it's the same thing with Gabe Kidd, because the match with Gabe Kidd was absolutely phenomenal. But I see it now. Yeah. So if we go back to my train analogy from earlier, like I was saying, it's like there's someone else that whose train I'm on that maybe I'm like, oh, the train has changed directions. It's this guy here. I might be off the Callum Newman train and waiting for it to swing by at a moment where I'll be like, yeah, I'll buy a ticket, I'm back on. But I feel like we're in a completely new direction in this train. I feel like his matches over the past couple of months with the House of Torture dorks, you can only do so much. And I think he did the best he could in the circumstances. You can only do so much with Evil and Kanemaru, and you really can only do so much at this point. Right here though, in this circumstance here, though, when it's time for him to deliver in big time spots, big co-main event spots, he's delivering. And if it's his opponents that are able to bring it out of him, well, let's go. Let's have more matches with Uemura and Gabe Kidd, because we are going to get Gabe Kidd versus Yota Tsuji at Dominion. We've got 2 months or, whatever, month and a half to build this. It's going to be, I'm already excited for this. Rematch of one of the best matches I've seen this year. So let's go, right? I'm starting to see a pattern. I'm not saying there is a pattern, but I'm absolutely starting to see a pattern in Tsuji's work that tells me that he probably actually does have the stuff to be more than just a vibes guy. And that makes me happy. Anyway, this match was great. See, I think I'm going to go 4.5. I'm going 4.5 on this one. Two of the brightest stars, young stars that New Japan has, and one guy isn't even all that young. He's over 30, but fresh stars. How about that? I love this match. I think I liked it more than the main event. Is that a hot take? I love the main event. Don't get me wrong, but I think I like this match more. Is that a hot take? Let's run down the rest of what I watched for night 2, which was, of course, the 8-man tag team match where the LIJ team of Tetsuya Naito, Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi defeated Taichi, Taka Michinoku, Shota Umino, and Tomohiro Ishii. Look, outside of this being another fun LIJ multi-man, has the potential to be the last one we ever seen. I've always had a soft spot for LIJ multi-man matches. This was good. And outside of that, well, Tetsuya Naito performed his last Destino on Taichi, and Bushi did his rocket dive, probably, both for the last time as contracted and wrestlers for New Japan Pro Wrestling. This was their last match, and it was treated as such, and the audience knew that it was. They were extremely loud for Naito and gave Bushi some great reactions as well. It's so weird. I don't know what to add other than what I haven't already said over on my other shows and whatnot, or what other people have already said. But I sat watching this match thinking how weird it is, like the level of the level of unreality. I don't want to say denial, because I'm completely okay with it, despite me being an LIJ fan. It's just so odd to be seeing Tetsuya Naito walking out, his theme and everything, and he's got the LIJ guys around him, and realizing that this is his last time doing it, or at least, again, full time. He's not retiring. He's not going away forever. He's gonna do something else. I think that's a given. But it's like, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. So look at it, and you're like, this is so strange. There's something not real about it, because everything feels so normal, and there's no fanfare on top of that, because New Japan is not treating this as, the last time Tetsuya Naito will ever be here. They're not treating it like a retirement. They're just like, I think that doing this with a lot of fanfare would have gone against the vibe of Naito regardless. Even though, there were silences, there were situations, but, there was nothing that really punctuated it outside of Yota Tsuji after his match, when the LIJ guys came back out to fist bump with him, and he took the microphone and said something to the effect of, we'll always be connected regardless of what happens to LIJ, right? Outside of that, there really weren't any, and there wasn't really anything special. Naito, the 8-man match finished, and what did the guys do? They all stood around in the middle of the ring like they usually do, and they talked to each other, and they seem to be popping each other. They crack some jokes. There's some smirks. And then Naito does the thing, and then everyone does the thing, and then everyone goes off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean when I say, like, it's so normal. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's not connecting in my brain that Naito is gone from New Japan, that he's off to do other things. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it is because I realize that, he's freelancing, and he'll probably pop back in at some point, maybe even, at the start of the new year, or, maybe sooner. I don't know. Like, the relationship hasn't finished coldly. They're not, no one's slamming any doors. From everything I heard, he's had it's a good exit. Everyone's on good terms. It's not like the Okada exit, which was a little colder. This one is a very good exit. I don't know what the thing is, quite frankly, that is going to make me realize that Tetsuya Naito is just not there. But it is weird to think of New Japan without Tetsuya Naito. And that's where we're at. But I don't know if I'm making any sense, because none of this makes sense, really. Oh, I would have loved to be privy to all the details of all the conversations that Naito had with New Japan and President Tanahashi, so that I could understand, like, on what grounds couldn't they agree on, and to the point where Naito's like, I'm going to choose to go do my own thing. A guy who has said multiple times that he loves New Japan, and I think even Chris Charlton said it on, it's something that we've said for years, and Chris Charlton said it on commentary, I believe, that Tetsuya Naito loved New Japan probably more than New Japan love Tetsuya Naito because of the booking and whatnot. It's kind of a storyline gimmick, but nonetheless, it's weird. It's so weird. But in the way that part of an 8-man match, right? It was part of an 8-man match. So, and it was just such a business as usual type of situation where I'm like, okay, well, the door's not closed. We're not throwing away the key. It's fine. It's fine. He's gone, but it's also fine. But this was a fun match. Like, it was fun. I gave it 3.5 stars. I like the LIJ multi-mans. They're fun. The guys have always worked well with each other. They've always been fun little distractions on the card, and this was nothing less than that. It was a good time. Looking through the card here, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toru Yano, Tajiri, Yo, and Ryota Chikuzen defeated the TMDK group of Zack Sabre Jr., Ryohei Oiwa, Robbie Eagles, Kosei Fujita, and Big Jag, Harley Jackson. Have I just not noticed that was the nickname that they gave him? They put on his chyron, Harley Jackson. You call him Big Jag. I mean, it's not only a nickname, it's a perfect descriptor. Just if we're being honest with each other. That was, I popped. Anyway, look, Tajiri, to 2025 Tajiri is, we got as much, we probably got the best out of Tajiri in our day and age as we could. Had a nice little grappling one-on-one with Zack Sabre Jr., but that was about it. You just wanted him to do the mist. Then afterwards, it's Tajiri. It's fine. I thought it was a nice little thing to have on Tanahashi's ongoing road to retirement. It was a fine little match. It's fine. It's all fine. Tajiri missed, who did he miss? Hartley, right? Big Jag. Tajiri missed Big Jag, and that led to the high fly flow from the Ace of the Universe for the win. It's fine. I don't know. 3.25, 3. We'll give it 3. And the other match that I watched on night 2 was the Stardom match where Hazuki, Koguma, and Maika, what do they call themselves? The Fukuoka 3 crazy trio, right? Something like, I don't remember. I'm sorry. They defeated Starlight Kid, Azumi, and Yuna Mizumori. I thought this was a lot of fun. 3.5 stars. I enjoyed that tremendously. Great high speed match showcasing the Starlight girls under 10 minutes. So they're going to give it their all. And they, the cardio, the cardio never gives up, and everyone's great. These are all, all bunch of wrestlers that I really like in this match. Starlight Kid, Azumi, Maika, Hazuki, Koguma. These are all wrestlers that I really, really like. So there was, I was like, oh, well, this is an exhibition match for me. Thank you. It was tremendous. It was a lot of fun. I give it 3.5 stars. Everyone worked at great pace, great high spots, solid overall. And the rest on night 1, on night 2, I didn't watch. Let's go to night 1, where there's really, I guess, one match there's 2 matches of real significance. Like, I think the business end of the card is good. I think it's good overall, but look, the dog pound match that contained the Bullet Club War Dogs team of David Finlay, Clark Connors, Drilla Maloney, Gabe Kidd, and Taiji Ishimori defeated the House of Torture group of Evil, Ren Narita, Sanada, Sho, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. But you can also, you might as well throw in Dick Togo and Yujiro Takahashi, who were outside the cage, but and I know that wasn't going to last very long. This was all in a cage, of course. It was a War Games type of setup, but not really a War Games. It's one of they do the cages like not like close to not over the ring, but like around ringside. So it's like up close to the audience. So there's ample room for the guys to do things on the floor. I didn't hate this, but also, look, it's going to sound weird, right? Because I rated this match pretty high in my book because I liked it, but I also thought it was kind of dry. I gave it 3 3/4 stars, which is, a very good match, right? But like I remember last year, or was it last year or the year before, the last time they did the dog pound match with the United Empire, which is the one that was just fucking bonkers, right? Just completely insane, nutty bonkers. The one that where Hinare almost died, right? Because he split his skull open and he fought the rest of the match with like, a bandage wrapped around his head like he had a toothache, in an old Tom and Jerry cartoon. This was really good, really well worked, and it was violent. Like the guys worked hard. You can't take that away. And there wasn't as much House of Torture shenanigans here as the stuff they were doing had ferocity to it, and it was mean. It was, violent is the word I'm looking for, I guess. And I'm sorry, Sonata's outfit coming out ruled, and I wish he had wrestled in it the entire way, quite frankly. Look, I'm completely okay with Sonata being, a jackass like this and wearing his clothes, having these overly obnoxious clothes. Like, I'm completely for that. Anyway, like everyone bleeds really early in this match on the War Dog side. There's, did anyone not bleed on the War Dog side? Maybe Clark Connors. Maybe Dave Finlay. Yeah, and I thought the balance was pretty good in the sense that they do all, they'd be doing all sorts of wild shit on the floor, sending Gabe Kidd head first into a table, right? They do, but then they'd get back into the ring and they'd have matches, they'd have moves, you'd have Clark Connors, doing double spears on guys. You'd have Dave Finlay actually wrestling Evil and doing, the Into Oblivion and shit like that. But you'd have the table spots. You'd have all, you'd have Taiji Ishimori moonsaulting off the cage, which was probably the biggest contribution he did to the match, quite frankly, which I'm not really surprised about. There's also the Gedo splash from the top of the cage onto Dick Togo. Was on top of the table. The table didn't break, and Gedo sort of did the jump. He kind of did it a la Adam Copeland against Malachi Black from a couple of AEW pay-per-views ago that ended really poorly. It was like, no, don't land on your feet, Gedo, you idiot. Don't do it. Dan Maloney cracks Sonata's guitar across Sonata's head. We have a table with barbed wire involved as well. Ren Narita, though, bleeds in this match. And who knew that he was such a bleeder? Jesus Christ. Like, he's gushing. Like, he had the Muta scale mat. He had the Muta scale breaking Crimson Mask. That was crazy. The amount of blood that guy lost in this match was just bonkers. And the match comes to an end when Gabe Kidd super pile drives Ren Narita through the barbed wire table for the win. Again, this is a solid, entertaining brawl. Bloody, violent, 3 3/4 stars. Not a good mix between the wild spots and the in-ring, I'd say, but didn't have like the chaos of last year's, or again, I say last year, but at the last dog pound match they had, which was completely bonkers. This felt a little more controlled, probably because guys didn't want to get hurt. The final spot that Gabe Kidd does is just bonkers, right? And not much margin for error either. It was tremendous. It was a lot of fun. 3 3/4 stars from me. You don't see much of those in New Japan, and I think if they want to keep doing these and have them like be the War Dog specialty match. I'm completely okay with that. But, you know, they don't have to bring it back every year, which they didn't. I say last year, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't last year when the United Empire, well, I'm pretty sure. Why don't I check? Well, it was a year ago. Well, it was over a year ago. It was in February last year. Okay. I thought it was like, okay, well, that's okay. As long as they don't bring it back every year, nonetheless, or at least on the same show, right? And let's not forget, you know, the one last year lasted like over an hour, and it was just like, I kind of miss the chaos, but I don't mind them keeping this packaged up a lot more neatly than that we didn't have. Because I think that was a little bit my apprehension that we were going to have ourselves like another hour match here, but we didn't. And I appreciate that. I really do. I think that was a good call. No, this was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. 3 3/4 stars. And another great match, Shingo Takagi versus defeated Shota Umino in a special singles match. I don't think Shingo Takagi and Shota Umino care for each other much. I don't think they like each other much. And not in kayfabe. Well, yes, in kayfabe, but I'm not saying specifically in kayfabe. I don't think they like each other for real. I saw a couple of things on the tour that people were pointing out and went and looked back. Like, man, Shingo seems to be going for seems a little snug. Seems he's working a little tight. Seems he's getting some receipts in. And in this match here, I mean, Shingo dominated. And not just like in the story of the match they were saying, but as far as the offense as well, he's just pummeling Umino throughout this match. So it's just completely beating the fucking shit out of this kid. And I don't know, look, I've heard that Shingo didn't like a couple of tweets that Shota put out, you know, in the build to this match, things that flew a little too close to the sun. That Shingo was like, you know, things that happened in the past that Shingo was had been once associated with, that he was kind of like, no, I don't. It's not good. Shouldn't be bringing this up. And that our boy Shota might have caught a little heat. And I think this all got settled in the ring. But I don't think these guys like each other. I don't think look, we've seen Shingo. We know how he works. We've seen him multiple times. He was particularly vicious, I found. I thought he was coming in pretty red fucking hot in some circumstances here. I don't know, man. He's doing his combos and he's laying in. The lariats are all a little stinkier than usual. The pumping bomber that he landed at the end, you know, he leaned into it a little more, didn't he? I feel like he was pressing on with his legs a little harder on that one. Wasn't just a swing of the arm. I think he, you know, our boy Shota ended up with a broken nose, and I don't think he cares. I think he might be gone. Well, there you go. There's a little something there. There's a little something there. Can't quite put my finger on it, but look, Shota ran this match as the babyface, where he's getting the hope spots, of course, and they're getting squashed. And he never really fulfills a big babyface comeback. And it's fascinating to me. Like, they have a strike exchange towards the end. And I think that's what the comeback was. It was essentially the strike exchange that they had, and Shota gets a little offense in, but then, you know, he pummels Shingo with some lariats, you know, running knee strike and stuff like that. But then Shingo does all of his fucking finishers on him. He does the Burning Dragon. He does the Last of the Dragon. He does the Made in Japan. He does the Pumping Bomber. Like the whole hand, the Royal Flush. I don't know. I love this match because it was just like brutal. Big strikes, dumping guys dumping other guys on other guys, dumping heads, dumping. But other than that, but you could feel there were other forces at work here. Should we put it that way? We weren't just telling a nice, neat little kayfabe story. How about that? 4 stars for me on that one. Oh, and I forgot to mention, just reading over my notes here, after the dog pound match, David Finlay challenged Evil to a dog collar match because he was strangled with a dog collar during the proceedings. So okay, let's get nuts. I'm okay. Let's get a little nuts. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. We've seen this match multiple times. It absolutely was not one of their best, but it was good. I give it 3.5 stars. You do what you got to do to win this one. You do what you got to do with Hiroshi Tanahashi in 2025. We have seen some really interesting splashes of brilliance from Tana over the past couple of weeks, but I mean, he wasn't bad here by any stretch of the imagination. But Zach also knows how to handle all of this. He's a master. So everyone looked good here. It was a good little match. I love the finish where Zach has the sleeper hold on Tanahashi until he gets really, really groggy, and then Zach lands the Zach driver for the win. That was good. 3.5 stars, right? And El Fantasmo and Konosuke Takeshita went to a time limit draw in regards to the New Japan World TV match. I thought this was good. I thought this was very good. In fact, I gave it 3 3/4 stars. A couple of classic spots from ELP in this one where he does the Thunder Kiss 86 all the way, he springboards all the way across into the audience, right? That's always great. Pile driver on the apron by ELP, and he does the sit out powerbomb in CR2 to try and put Takeshita away, but he can't because Takeshita's a fucking beast. That's why. Takeshita catches ELP off of a springboard into what was supposed to be like a full blue thunder bomb, but I don't know. He lost his footing a bit. Takeshita did, and I think it looked even cooler than a blue thunder bomb because you could tell he was. I'm gonna drop you now, whomp, because if I don't do it now, it might get worse. That was tremendous. They trade poison ranas. I love the final sequence, like the last minute where both guys are just strike, cover. The guy kicks out at one, and they're doing all these sequences of moves, covering the other guy kicking out, and you're like, oh, this is not going to work. You can feel it, but the guys are really trying. I like this final sprint to this match tremendously. I thought it elevated it quite a bit. 3 3/4 stars for me. And I also watched the LIJ match from night 1. Bushi, Naito, Hiromu, and Yoda taking on Tomohiro Ishii, Taichi, Taka Michinoku, and Yuya Uemura. But I've said everything I had to say about the LIJ stuff. There's really nothing more to add. And I didn't watch the rest. Those are the choices that I made. Hopefully you endorse my selections. Hopefully you back me up on that, and you're like Warren, you really should have watched Katsuyori Murashima versus Daiki Nagai. You really should have watched that. Fail, Warren. Go back and watch it. A good show. I thought overall night 2. Okay, so night 4. Night 1 has more because it has 4 matches. That's why I said 4. It has more matches that have a lot of significance to them, and they're very good. The Bullet Club, War Dogs, and the House of Torture, Shota versus Shingo, the TV title match, Tanahashi versus Sabre. But night 1 has there's 2 really big matches, and they're so good. Like, those are the two you should watch, if that makes sense. Like, those are the two that you go out of your way to see. You go see Hiroki Goto and Callum Newman. Go see Callum Newman have his time in the sun, where he's just tremendous. And you go watch Yota Tsuji and Yumera, the generational rivals, having a generational match right here. You go do that. I mean, so especially if you're strapped for time, that's what I'd have you go watch. If you have more time on your hands, well, the top 4 matches of night 1 and those 2 matches that I just mentioned are the ones you should really focus on. And of course, you want to watch the last LIJ multi-man match on night 2. What am I talking about? Of course, that's part of the deal. That's another thing you need to watch. And there you go. That does it for Wrestling Dontaku 2025. It's a good show. Good nights. Yeah.